Hey guys, I'm gonna keep this one relatively short. I just had some stuff to say about what's going on. So, apparently, Cenk Uygur has decided to run for president. And I have very mixed feelings about this. I'm gonna make this one relatively quick because it really depends on a lot of stuff. Apparently, Cenk's parents were American citizens, so technically he could be a naturalized citizen by law, even though he was born in Istanbul. Therefore, he would be legally allowed to actually run for president and actually be able to win the presidency if he won. The problem is that Cenk Uygur is not that great of a candidate. So when he ran for Congress, he decided he was going to run in his local election. And he only ended up getting like 10% to 20% of the votes in the Democrat primary. He came in like fourth place, which I'm not going to call him out too much on because the fact of the matter is that Dan Bongino also ran for Congress around about the same time. I think even in the same election year, Dan Bongino ran for a few different elections actually. And similarly, Dan Bongino only got into like third or fourth place in the primaries. Like, these guys don't even get any close, even though they have millions of subscribers. And that's because most common people don't actually know who these guys are. Especially Cenk, he's been surpassed by both Tim Pool and the Quartering, and I think he's actually been online longer than the Timcast has been, or at least Timcast Live. I'm not sure about Timcast. But what you gotta remember is that while these guys have millions of viewers and millions upon millions of people know who they are, they're not centralized in any one area. I mean, let's say all of Cenk Uygur's 1 million fans or 1 million subscribers are one, real, none of them are bots, but two, not only are they real, they're all in America. Well, that's only one out of 365 million people inside the United States alone. They're not all going to be in his local area. That's just not a thing, right? They're not all going to be right there in his district to vote for him. So that's one reason why no one really knows who he is. And the thing about Cenk Uygur too is that for for any YouTuber or someone who's been online for a long time, there's a lot of ammo you can use against him. Like, he's done some pretty suspect things in the past. And again, don't blame him. He made sexist jokes, for example. Now, whether or not they were actually jokes, neither here or there, but they're easy ammo to be used against him. Dan Bongino kind of fell out of his race because he started swearing on an interview with a major news station. I can't remember if it was ABC or NBC or who cares. None of those stations matter anymore, but that was what Dan Bongino was trying to do. He was trying to go through mainstream media, and well, it didn't work out for him. So, for Cenk Uygur, not only is it suspect whether or not he can become president, there's also the idea that he lost his Congress race. We don't know if a lot of his subscribers are real. And they just don't realize, the Young Turks, they don't realize that the majority of people don't like them. Now, they have a lot of fans, in theory. They haven't been getting a lot of views lately, but they have as many as 1 million plus subscribers, so you would think, and they've been able to survive. And honestly, before I get into it, I actually kind of respect Cenk for doing this. Because by his own admission, he believes that Joe Biden has absolutely no possible way to win whatsoever. And he's probably right. Joe Biden's probably doomed. He's the worst president since Carter. He's awful for so many reasons. And I don't care what you thought about President Trump. I don't care if you think that Biden saved us or whatever the hell you believe, okay? For the fact of the matter is that food costs twice as much, gas costs twice as much. 2 wars have started under Joe Biden. Let's not even get into indictments right now. It's just all pointless, okay? Just look at the approval and favorability ratings, and they tanked hard. I explained this in my last video about how minorities are no longer supporting Joe Biden, and that's a huge part of it, okay? You can say that you can truly believe, if you want to, that it's better under Biden than it was under Trump. I don't agree at all in any regard, but you can believe that. But the numbers don't lie. Joe Biden's numbers are in the crapper. No one likes him. So to me, Cenk Uygur deciding to run against him when other candidates who probably could beat Trump, because let's face it, Trump's going to be the nominee, like perhaps a younger man like Gavin Newsom, even though Gavin Newsom is insane, at least in my opinion. He's farther left, and that's not going to be popular with the base. But you can argue that Gavin Newsom could possibly win against Trump simply because he's a younger man. Now, Cenk running to try to force these guys' hands kind of makes a little bit of sense. Because it's the same thing with Kennedy. Kennedy running as a third party. Kennedy is going to pull more from Joe Biden than he is from Trump, which means that you're going to need to get someone in there that can really, really get the numbers to overcome the Kennedy handicap. So Cenk is doing this as a protest vote, right? And a lot of people are laughing at him about it. Liberal hive mind was laughing at him. And I get it. It's so stupid. But, it's a symbolic gesture that I respect. So, yeah, I actually kind of respect him for it. It's not going to help. His announcement was trash. He didn't really sell the idea to Anna very well. I'm blanking on her last name right now. And it's just not going to move the metric, and it's not going to get anyone to get in. And if he was just running on his own, he thinks he can get 20% of the vote. Honestly, if he is one of the better candidates, and it's him and Marianne Williamson, he might. Unlikely, because there's actually already 250 Democrats in the race. I'm not sure if you know this, but if you actually look up people who registered to run, there's like 250 Democrats and like 350 Republicans. Now, only 10 of the Republicans actually mattered. 2 of them have dropped out. I think it's around 10. Not counting Larry Elder. I mean, he should count, but the race is very clearly rigged against him, and he would never be able to beat Trump, even if the race wasn't rigged against him, because they see him as basically Trump light. So, from the perspective of Does Cenk getting into the race mean that he could actually get 20%? No. There's so many Democrats in the race, and a lot of them are running as jokes, or they're running as a protest, or they're running not a serious campaign. They're crazy, maybe. Maybe like they're just a meme or a joke. I mean, someone's literally registered to run as Jesus Christ. There's also one that's like Lord Zion. I'm not going to get into the racial implications of that, but it's obviously a joke. JC Zion, Lord Zion. Yeah, Jesus Christ, the Jew. I got into it. Anyways, no, Cenk cannot get 20%. He can't. There's too many Democrats in the race, and only 3 of them mattered: Joe Biden, Kennedy, and Marianne Williamson. And Marianne Williamson can only get like 6%. And Kennedy could only get up to 19%. He couldn't break 20. He was for a while there, but he couldn't break it. So what do you have to remember here? Cenk's symbolic gesture, while admirable, completely pointless. Completely pointless, and in fact stupid. He should have tried to convince someone who actually had some pull to get into the race. Like, he should have just like kept touting Gavin Newsom, or pulled whatever strings he had with any Democrat that he knew, interviewed in the past, whatever, to try to get them to get someone else who's actually got a chance to run. Plus, again, because Cenk was not born in the United States, even if he was born to American citizens, it's very unclear if he's capable of running. Now, the point I was going to get into is that what Cenk and Anna don't realize is that even with their fan base, even though they've been able to get enough donations to stay afloat, even though that they are actually getting more views because of the controversies, especially when he called out Hassan, especially since Anna is becoming more right-wing, she's not becoming a right-winger. She's not becoming MAGA or Republican or anything like that. No, she's still far left, or at least center left. Probably further left than center left, but because she is going against the grain now, and because Cenk kind of has to get pulled in that direction too, especially with all the anti-Jewish sentiment going on and all the other race-baiting crap that's starting to backfire on them, well, they're starting to drum up some controversy and bring in people who would normally never watch them. People on the right that are interested in seeing and where this is going, and whether or not they're going to get red pilled or just black pilled. Or if they're just going to double down on their Democrat, like, I was going to say cocksucking, but yes, cocksucking. Yeah. So, what Cenk and Anna don't realize is that the majority of people don't like them. While a lot of people don't really know much about their name, the people that would look into actually voting for Cenk Uygur for anything would look up the term Young Turks. If you don't know who the Young Turks were, I believe this was during World War I, right? When the Ottoman Empire still existed. The empire had basically completely collapsed, and there were 2 factions. Really only one, but there was a faction called the Young Turks. And then there was a man that would go on to be named Ataturk, which means father of the Turks. During this period, the Young Turks wanted to re-expand the Ottoman Empire, to reclaim all the territory that had been lost over the centuries, and make the Ottomans great again, basically. However, these guys were highly nationalistic, and they were conquerors through and through. They were also incredibly incompetent. They tried to base their system on the German. It wasn't a republic, but it had the Kaiser. Kind of like a monarchy, but not really. Um, I mean, it was ruled by noblemen, right? They wanted to base their system on the German model, whereas Ataturk wanted to base it on the French model. Well, Ataturk wasn't in charge at the time, the Young Turks were. And like I said, they were highly incompetent. They were losing the war badly. Their forces were poorly trained. They clearly had lost track of the plot. They had no idea how to fight a modern war. They did not have the proper weapons or artillery to deal with anyone else in the region. They were just getting creamed. Well, the Young Turks did what every regime does when they start to lose support. They found a scapegoat. If you ever heard of Armenia, Armenia is one of the biggest Christian nations inside the Middle East. Technically, Armenia is in the Caucasus, so they're right up there with Georgia, which is also a Christian nation. But the Christians and the Arabs didn't really get along after the Arabs took over, Constantinople. Well, the Young Turks blamed the war losses on Armenia and the Armenians. And let's just say that many millions of Armenians did not live to see the year out. Okay, just like that. Turkey has denied us ever since. But a lot of the Young Turks, after committing this genocide, went on the run and were hunted down and killed, and Ataturk filled the power gap, since he was one of the only people inside the regime that had not engaged in this act of murder. So, the Young Turks was a genocidal regime, and Cenk Uygur decides to name his organization after them. Okay, look at Israel right now. Look at what people who... I'm not saying the people who support Palestine, but the people who unironically support Hamas, that is about the level that Cenk Uygur's at by picking the name the Young Turks. And he didn't do it ironically. He did it because he actually admires this group. Now, does he also deny the Armenian genocide? I believe he does. And there is, I can't remember if it was Talib or Omar, but one of them also denies the genocide. And again, Turkey has denied this ever since, even though Ataturk wasn't involved, and Ataturk took over. And Ataturk formed the republic that Erdogan has completely destroyed. The history of Turkey is very long and complicated, and it's not applied to this, but anyone who actually is on the center, who might vote for Cenk Uygur in an election, they're going to look up the Young Turks, and they're going to look up his policy positions, and they're going to realize that this guy is not someone they're going to want to vote for. That even if they want to vote Democrat, that voting for a guy who's literally named himself after an organization, a regime that killed so many innocent people, it's not going to go over well. So yeah, I mean, I admire Cenk for doing this, but the fact of the matter is that everyone's laughing at him because, duh, there's no way in hell that he's going to move the metric, and apparently he doesn't even realize that there were so many Democrats already in the race. I mean, come on. All you have to do is look up the registrations and make the roster with it, which the website gives you the ability to make the roster. 250 Democrats, man. None of them can get any attention whatsoever. The only reason Cenk can get any attention is because he has this huge platform in order to push his agenda on. And to tell everybody, with his millions of subscribers and his million followers, that he's running. And every right wing pundit will push that out to the masses so we can all mock him for it. If anyone else knew about those 250 Democrats and we had a face, a name, and a history to put behind it, trust me, all those guys would be laughed out of the building too. Yeah, I mean, maybe one of them might actually be someone who would be better than Joe Biden in office. But again, a lot of these people are either writing as jokes, as memes, as like a publicity stunt, or because they're literally crazy and they had deluded themselves into think they can actually win. And I actually know, not personally, but I was following all of the third party candidates in 2020, and there's another website you can go to. I can list both of these websites in the description at some point. But there's another website you can go to that will list where all the votes theoretically went to during the election. You can look up state by state what states voted for what. Some people are write-ins. It was kind of difficult to tell, but I was able to make an entire roster about where all the votes theoretically went to. A lot of it is just write-in candidate, and it doesn't say like who the write-in candidate was, because some people literally would just write stuff like Mickey Mouse in there, or Jesus Christ, or Santa Claus, or their best friend, who, their best friend might be someone pretty popular at their school, or their workplace, but there's not a face to go behind the name, and since that person was probably not registered to run in the race in the first place, they just put it as generic write-in candidate. But there were 3 dozen, I believe, candidates that actually made a little blip on the radar in 2020. For example, like I said, I think I said this in a previous video, but Kanye West got like 77,000 votes, but he was only on the ballot in like 12 states or something like that. And comparing his vote count to other vote counts from other candidates that were not write-in. So say like I don't remember what states it was in specifically, but say he was a candidate on the ballot in Georgia, right? And there were like 10 other candidates on the ballot in Georgia. Includes Donald Trump, Joe Jorgensen, Joe Biden, maybe Howie Hawkins, excuse me, of the Green Party, and then some other candidates. For all the candidates that were non-write-in, Kanye West would do better than all of them, besides for the main four: the Green Party, the Libertarian Party, the Democrat, and the Republican Party. Kanye West would do better than all of them. So, by my calculations, and I can show you the math, I figured that if Kanye had been allowed on the ballot in all 50 states and DC, he would have gotten around 500,000 votes. For example, Cenk Uygur, if he was allowed on the ballot in all 50 states and DC, probably would be lucky if he could get 100,000. And I think that's a way over the moon estimate for him. I think he got like 10,000 in his local race, but that was in a primary. For an actual run at the presidency for the general election, I don't know, maybe a lot of people would vote for him for the meme. But they're probably, if someone's going to go vote in the election, they're probably going to go vote, spend the hour in line or however long it takes, because they actually want to vote. Not just vote as a joke or as a protest. So yeah, he would be lucky. I mean, one of the candidates only was on the ballot in one state, and he only got 29 votes. I think his name was Zach something. But anyways, yes. Cenk running completely doesn't matter. Go ahead and laugh at him if you want. I'm not. I mean, I think it's kind of funny. So I kind of am laughing at him, but I also kind of admire him. But it's not going to hurt Joe Biden whatsoever. It's not going to convince anyone else to get in the race. He's not going to be able to hurt Joe Biden's campaign all that much. Is him talking against Joe Biden and Anna Consparian talking against Joe Biden going to hurt him? Anna basically said that people are backing Joe Biden because they're going to save democracy. She still believes that crap. She still believes that our president, Donald Trump, who was basically a libertarian in terms of how he governed. I want everyone to realize that he was basically a libertarian in how he governed. That if Donald Trump gets in, our democracy is completely destroyed. And a Consparian, not right wing. She's still crazy. But Cenk Uygur keeps going against the Democrats, keeps going against Joe Biden, will keep going against Joe Biden. He'll probably change his mind as soon as Joe Biden wins the primary election. He will reluctantly back the guy, and he will say often, like, well, I don't like him, but, he's the only thing we got to defeat Donald Trump, so I'm going to back him. He's going to be all sad about it. But, yeah. He's going to cuck. He's going to cuck. We all know it. Anna Kasparian, she's going to keep saying all this stuff about how, like, she's going to be talking against the transgender community, how she doesn't want to be called a birthing person. She's going to still say stuff like that, but she's going to back Joe Biden too. So can these guys even hurt Joe Biden's campaign? I mean, they're going to be talking crap about Joe Biden, at least Cenk is, for the next few months until Joe Biden wins the primaries, and then he's going to take another month or two to slowly switch over to supporting Joe Biden full-heartedly, or wholeheartedly, or half-heartedly, or whatever. And Consparian is still going to talk crap against the LGBT community. We'll see the T part of that community. But she's also going to back him. So anyone that they convince to go against Joe Biden, they're probably going to convince them to go back to Joe Biden. So, yeah, this is a completely pointless gesture. If anything, if they convince people to not vote for Joe Biden, those people will vote for probably Kennedy or Marianne Williamson. In the actual general election, they'll vote for Kennedy. So, yes, the Young Turks may hurt Joe Biden in the long run. But again, with only 1 million subscribers, and they're not even getting those 1 million subscribers to watch them on a regular basis, they're not going to move the metric. They're basically irrelevant at this point. They're just around to be made fun of. Which I hate to say, because I'm kind of liking how they're starting to move further to the right. Will they ever become right-wingers? Hey, if they kept doing this for another century, maybe they would be. But that's not. Let's face it, another century of the Young Turks is... Why would you name your company after them? Why? Why would you name your company after them? Anyways, I'm rambling, so that's all for now. Half-hour video for you guys. Enjoy it, I guess.